Welcome to the BS Show, the gaming news podcast where we ditch the sugarcoating and give it to you straight. I'm Blake.
And I'm Steve.
And if you're looking for real talk without the BS, you've come to the right place. Before we jump in, don't forget to stay connected with us. Follow us on X at the BS Show GG for all the latest updates and hot takes. Check out our YouTube channel at the BS Show GG and be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're also on TikTok at the BS Show GG throughout the week, so make sure to stop on by and say what's up. Love what you're hearing? Show your support by liking this episode, dropping a comment with your thoughts, and subscribing to keep up with all our future content. This week we focus on problems with MMOs and what we think makes the perfect MMO, Blizzard banning frequent Mythic leavers, Path of Exile 2 early access, and the new hero shooter Marvel Rivals. Alright, let's cut to the BS and get into today's episode. Welcome everyone to the BS Show. Hope everybody's been having a good week and had a great weekend. So to hop into everything, Steve, how's your week been and what games you've been playing recently?
This week's been pretty hectic for me with work, so I haven't really been gaming a whole lot. I've played a little bit of hardcore WoW, trying to kind of level up. I died towards the end of last week. So
how many characters is that for you that have died already?
So 2 so far that have died, and it's always kind of dying around the same time. This one kind of felt really bad because I was questing and saw someone kind of running towards me, and he
were you about to help?
No. I wasn't planning on helping. I thought he was going to make it out.
Oh, you did.
As soon as they kind of crossed my path, as they were running back, like some of them just aggroed onto me and just started attacking me, and I just didn't have enough resources to get out. So
which class were you on?
Rogue.
You didn't vanish?
I didn't have vanish.
Oh, that's right. You need like vanish powder or something like that, don't you? It? Oh, yes. Yeah. Totally weird. Not used to that.
Yeah, so I didn't have any of that stuff, and I just ended up just dying and being very upset. And
what level were you again?
I was like 24.
Oh man, that must have hurt.
Yeah, so I was pretty upset, but at the same time, it's like it's part of the game, and you kind of start.
Fun.
Yeah, it kind of adds another layer of excitement. And I think we've talked about it a bunch too, but it's It definitely gets frustrating at times because it's like you commit so much time into these characters that after a while it's just like, fuck, don't want to do this again. But leveling up a warrior right now, so trying to get through that. But yeah, outside of that, we played a little bit of PoE 2 and some Marvel Rivals. How about you?
Yeah, so as always, tons and tons of League. I haven't really played a whole lot of Classic. My week 2 has been a little crazy with physical therapy, but yeah, dude, PoE 2, we played again Marvel Rivals, and yeah, a bunch of League of Legends. So to hop into our first segment here, dude, kind of wanted to talk about what problems we see that a lot of MMOs have now, and like what we think makes the perfect MMO. So for me, in my opinion, the problem with MMOs, or what if you have these issues would make a bad MMO, is I got like, if your graphics are lackluster, I can't remember what game we were talking about last week. It's on the tip of my tongue. That new one that was also coming out in early access that I said it looked like old League of Legends. I don't like old looking graphics. It has to be, clean looking. Same with like the gameplay. The gameplay cannot look clunky. Like I liked Throne and Liberty at first because I wasn't used to it. It was kind of new, but the gameplay felt really clunky, and I think that's a big issue with MMOs. I think your combat needs to feel smooth, and like your abilities have to look visually appealing. Another big problem that I've seen, and that I think a lot of the community has spoken out about, is that the gameplay of some of these are way too fast and way too easy. Specifically, retail WoW. So we know we talked about this a little bit last week, and we noticed it that people were saying MMOs have been like way too easy, and the questing and the leveling is just, there's no longer a challenge, and that they prefer it to be a little bit harder. And then we see that with the popularity of WoW Hardcore Classic. The other thing I got is not enough rewards for your time. Now that could mean anything like from the gear you get for the time that you've invested into the game, and there's like nothing really, or there's like really nothing to draw you back and to keep playing. And again with like WoW, after because like you talked about this too with retail. Like once you've cleared all your dells, you've done your level 8 or your tier 8, you've done your heroic or mythic rating. What purpose do you really have to log back on? Now in WoW specifically, their seasons last typically like 3 to 4 months. And once you've done, what you normally do in that season, whether it's raid or, just your keystone master, you don't really have a reason to log back on, unless you really want to clear it with alts. So what about you? What do you think are like some big problems with MMOs now?
So you want to know something funny that you were kind of talking about how graphics is like a big selling point for people playing MMOs. So looking at numbers, if you kind of look at it based on player population,
don't say RuneScape, dude. Don't say.
Well, if you look at it, whether or not like the player population is actually growing or decreasing, every MMO in the last couple of years has decreased except for 2 MMOs. Can you guess which ones have actually?
You're gonna say RuneScape.
Can you guess like which 2 have actually increased or stayed the same, and which and every other MMO that you could think of has decreased. The population has decreased.
So increase?
Yeah.
I'm going to say RuneScape.
Which version specifically? Because there's 2 versions of RuneScape.
Isn't there like OG RuneScape?
So there's old school RuneScape and then the newer version of RuneScape that has like more polished graphics and all that.
I would think that old school RuneScape is probably more popular.
Yeah.
And then
so old
classic WoW?
No.
What's the other one?
Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, see, I never played Final Fantasy, so
the 2 MMOs that have seen continuous growth is RuneScape and Final Fantasy. And RuneScape is basically the complete opposite of everything you were saying. So it's like the graphics are very like it looks like it's something that you would play back in like the 90s. Combat is very basic. Your abilities look very basic. I've never played old school RuneScape, so I can't really say as to like how everything feels and what goes on.
How is it appealing?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, but people love it. People love the simplicity of it. And one of the things that, because I was actually watching a video on old school RuneScape last week, and they were kind of talking about how one of the great things about RuneScape is how it's a lot of horizontal gameplay. So it's like the content, you can kind of go back to it whenever, and it's never something that you out level or out gear. And that's kind of one of the negative aspects of like World of Warcraft, where it's like once you get to a certain point, the old content just kind of becomes irrelevant. So you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, you were talking about that before too.
You're kind of just
horizontal gameplay.
Yeah, you're kind of just stuck where it's like you're always looking to increase, even if it's the exact same expansion. If you miss the first season, by the time the second season comes out, the first season is basically irrelevant. So if you're playing the game to get like an idea of what the story is, you kind of miss out a portion of the story just because you're jumping in halfway through. And that's kind of how WoW does it. It's like everything is kind of all just one big story that's encompassed into little separate chapters, and that's what each season kind of is. And then at the end you get the final big reveal, and you see who the main bad guy is, and it kind of wraps everything up together for you. But when you do that and you're constantly adding gear increases, it makes it very difficult, or not difficult, but it makes it pointless for someone who's playing the game to, one, be able to go back and experience and actually enjoy the old content, because you out gear it so much or out level it so much that it's just boring. Like the fact that you can kind of go into like an old raid and just solo it by yourself is crazy.
Yeah, you could just spam AoE and you like literally one hit everything.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing that people really, really enjoy about RuneScape is like that aspect of it. You can log out, log back in a couple years later, and it's still, everything is still the same. You still kind of get to do the same things that you want to do. And that's something that's really fun and enjoyable. Like I play a lot of Warframe, and it's very similar. It's like I could log off for years and log back in, and I can still jump back in, and I still know exactly like, okay, this is what I need to do to get these Warframes, to get these weapons. I need to go over here and unlock this and unlock that. So having that.
It's funny you said RuneScape though, because DJ, he plays that now too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never played RuneScape. I'm not saying it's a bad game. I've never seen like the appeal to it. I've never, maybe it's because I've just never played it. It looks so confusing to me.
I mean, it's definitely, it's different for sure. Like if you think about like the type of like when you think about like the MMOs that you've played, where it's like World of Warcraft, and it's very much like you have, it's a different type of gameplay, like altogether. Like I feel like RuneScape to me kind of looks like if you're playing like Minecraft. It's a different level of enjoyment, and you have to really be comfortable enjoying that type of gameplay to have fun with it. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy it. Like if you're used to that kind of like World of Warcraft is very fast paced. It's very. I was watching something the other day, and they were kind of comparing World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy. Like, granted, it's not World of Warcraft and RuneScape, but they kind of were saying World of Warcraft feels like a street brawl, where everything is very reactionary. Like, you don't have like set combos. It's like, okay, you need to do this at this specific time because this is happening. There's this mechanic that's happening that is causing you to have to move, and you're not able to really do your rotation the way that you're supposed to do. Granted, there's a lot of setup in World of Warcraft, but
it's scripted gameplay.
Yeah, it doesn't really like flow together the way you would kind of expect like some games to kind of flow. And I wonder if that's kind of what RuneScape is. But again, like I've never played it. So
maybe we need to download it and try that this week. I don't know.
Maybe like RuneScape is definitely one of those games where it's like I've always like kind of seen it, and I've always known people that play it, and just never really caught my interest. Like Final Fantasy.
Didn't Brandon and his brother play, and all them play like a bunch of RuneScape?
I don't know, honestly.
I just remember them playing it. I never, like I said, I thought that they shut the servers down a long time ago. I didn't know that I knew that they came out with like a new one, but I didn't know that you could still play old school.
Yeah.
Damn. So then, here, you go first.
No, I was just gonna say, and Final Fantasy is like on the complete opposite spectrum, where it's like something completely different, but it's much more polished graphics. The colors are very vibrant. You're like, it has like super epic music. The combat is intense and hard and difficult, but it's not anything like World of Warcraft. Like someone was comparing, when I was watching that video where they were comparing the two games, they were kind of saying Final Fantasy is more like a dance. It's very like scripted in a sense, where it's like you do things at a very specific time and place, and like this is how the combat kind of flows, and you're able to put together different abilities to kind of create combos, and that's how you play the game.
You're comparing playing Final Fantasy to like doing ballet.
Yeah, I mean that's what these people were saying, and I've seen a lot of gameplay of like the raids and trial runs that they do, and they look crazy. Like the music is insane. It feels like almost like a movie at times.
Well, I have heard you play Final Fantasy for the story. I have heard that.
Yeah, and I guess like even before you can even get into the like MMO aspect of the game, like you're spending like, I think they said it's like 100 hours just in solo play, where you're going through the stories and you can get to the end, and it's like that again. Like that's something that's completely different. Like I've seen some big WoW creators that go in and play Final Fantasy, and like people that are watching them play the game, they're like they want to relive the story through someone else's point of view. And I think that's why a lot of people enjoy watching people play these types of story games, because you don't have the opportunity to kind of, so some games like, and I know we've talked about this in the past, it's literally like art. Like you're watching these stories kind of develop, and you're getting to connected and attached to these characters, and it's an awesome experience the first time you experience it. But again, you can only experience it for the first time once. And I think this is why a lot of people enjoy watching other people play these games, because while you can't experience it for the first time and you don't get these emotions, you can kind of see someone else experience those exact things for the first time and kind of relive those moments through them. And I think that's why a lot of people enjoy watching people play Final Fantasy.
Is it cross-platform, or is it just on PC?
I think it's cross-platform now. So I know you can play it on console, and that's one big thing that I think a lot of MMOs nowadays should really look at doing. If you're solely on PC or solely on console, you're kind of missing out on a big group of players that would probably play your game and enjoy it. if they.
Well, that's like what the younger generation is playing. They're more on console than PC.
Oh yeah, 100%. Either that or like mobile. But yeah, there has to be an opportunity for them to be able to do that. But who knows, like, if it's like the story that's drawing people in. Maybe World of Warcraft really needs to focus on the story and like that world building aspect, because I think after like Cataclysm, maybe I'm trying to think like the last like expansion that really felt like there was like world changing events. Like now it kind of just feels like, I guess MOP in a sense, but it's
but the stories don't like. I wish that they were linear. They kind of went from one to the other. They're just kind of, every expansion is just like a whole totally different freaking story. I wish they kind of was like a series, like one led into the next one kind of thing.
Yeah, it just didn't feel as epic to me in a sense, because it's like the whole and I guess I don't remember the full MOP story as well. So I'm not 100% sure how the Shah and Garrosh were involved together, and like whether or not that kind of caused, like Garrosh was the reason that whole world got infected by that. I guess like the darkness Shah thing that kind of came out of the world, those like toxic sludges and shit. But it's like the last like one where it like really felt like everything was kind of coming together, and you're like, exactly who you're gonna battle at the end. Was like Cataclysm. Like Cataclysm, you knew exactly, okay, the last person we're gonna fight is Deathwing. Deathwing is the
badass
reason
fight too, by the way.
Yeah, it's like this is the reason that this all happened, was because Deathwing destroyed and caused the Cataclysm. So it's like you're getting the opportunity as you're leveling to really see like the effects of everything that's going on. So it's building everything up, and then at the end you have that final climax and that final battle. So maybe that's what they're missing. Maybe they just need to figure out a way to get back into that, because I think the World of Warcraft story is great, but I just think now it's like
it's all over the fucking place.
It's not just that. It's just like it's a rush to get to max level, and then people don't care about the story. People just want to beat the raids. People just want to beat the just do mythic dungeons. Just want to do end game, and it's like you're not really doing anything for the people that play MMORPGs, for the RPG aspect of it.
Maybe they need to implement more like cutscenes into the fights.
I think so. Either that or I don't know. It's just it doesn't feel like you're playing the game for the story with World of Warcraft.
No, yeah, it's like you're playing the game just to beat it, and that's it.
Yeah, it's like and again, like that's why people enjoy playing these types of games. Is they want to see a good story. They want to see the world building. They want to get attached to the characters, and World of Warcraft does a good job with these cutscenes to kind of do that and build the anticipation. But the last couple expansions, it's just kind of it hasn't felt like they were doing a good job outside of the expansion cinematic, like that intro cinematic. Like those are always really good, but then after that, it's like, okay, what's going on? I don't. You're kind of getting thrown back into this basic MMO questing area where it's like, okay, you need to go kill 10 pigs. Or go collect X amount of stuff to bring it back so we can make some food and do this, collect some logs, collect some other stuff. And it just feels like a lot of the same over and over and over again.
Yeah, it gets kind of boring after doing the same thing 100 times,
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. And it's like maybe doing something to brighten up the leveling portion of the game.
See, I think what would make the perfect MMO is, like, we talked about Throne and Liberty, how when you're in, like, the major cities and questing, like, them being active, like, I think Blizzard really kind of fucked up by, how they did, like, the whole layering and phasing of the different realms and stuff like that. So, like, the cities aren't as packed or as busy as what they were. So, like, I was in Stormwind with Sam one time. We were both on Sargeras, and we were phased from each other and placed in different layers. So it's like your game has to feel active. And then another thing I got here as to what I think makes a perfect MMO, and you're going to disagree with me on this one, I already know, but I think good and balanced PvP. I thought that Guild Wars 2 did that almost, I don't want to say perfect because nothing's perfectly, but they did a really good job on their PvP. I just wish it was more active, because with like a lot of these other games, locking PvP behind gear, I think is dumb. And you see that in Throne of Liberty, you see that in WoW. Not only do you need fully enchanted gear, but you need full conquest gear to even compete. And then with how small PvP communities are in MMOs, like, you need to lower that barrier of entry and make it easier to for people to hop on and play. Another thing here I got is you need to have good combat, in a sense that, like, you need your spells to feel meaningful and like look flashy. I kind of liked Throne of Liberty with that, is like you really had to think about what you were using, because you had 12, I think, keybinds total to use for abilities. But you were given like 16 different abilities. So you kind of had to actually look at what your abilities, look at what they do, and they had to, be meaningful for you to use them, right? Because you're leveling up the abilities. I think that, is what makes really good MMO. And then as well, you need guilds, the social aspect. I don't think any MMO is a good MMO without the social aspect of it, because it's like, what's the whole point of even playing it unless you're playing with friends, or a guild, with the guildies or clanmates. And like I said, I think WoW kind of ruined that, especially in the PvP side, with like the solo shuffle and the BG Blitz, where you don't even have to find a group anymore. You can just queue by yourself. It's like, that's not what a MMO really is to me. So do you have any other ones you kind of want to add to like make that? What do you think makes a perfect MMO?
Not so much, like, and I think you touched on a lot of the things, and I guess my kind of question to you is just like, we kind of talked about the games that are doing really well, and how a lot of the games that are doing really well don't necessarily fit the mold that you're kind of explaining. So I guess what do you think is it that makes games like RuneScape so successful when their combat is very bland, and games like Final Fantasy so successful that don't incorporate anything? Like PvP is almost like non-existent. Like, people don't play Final Fantasy for PvP. People play it for the epic raids and epic battles and all that stuff. Like, a lot of the things like group play, like, yeah, it's there, but you can still kind of play in a more single player type of game. Like Final Fantasy, you can experience all of Final Fantasy just playing by yourself. Same thing with RuneScape. You could play RuneScape completely by yourself. I do think it's very important to have that kind of group aspect to really be able to fully enjoy an MMORPG, but I think at the same time you really do need to have a way for people to play it by themselves.
So maybe I just have like shit taste in games or something, but like I think maybe like RuneScape, I think a big portion of it is nostalgia. A lot of people played it. I think it's easy to access and play. You got the issue, like the biggest thing, I think the issue with WoW is that you got 100 different abilities. You need to, you pretty much need an MMO mouse now for how many things you have. I think RuneScape is simplistic, and that, means kids, adults, whatever, of all ages are able to hop on and play it without too much, without that huge learning curve as well. I mean, I don't know, like, I know Final Fantasy doesn't have PvP, but like that's like the cool thing about MMOs is like, you may play one for one reason and I may play it for another reason, but like having the ability to do all those different things is what I think makes it great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I guess it was more so just kind of trying to.
I guess
play, like,
maybe they got like a better story. I don't know. I think that is too. Final Fantasy does. Like I said, I've never played it, but I do know from what I've heard that they have like a fantastic storyline.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you think. It's like, what is it that other MMOs are doing wrong? Because you do see MMOs that kind of tend to focus. Like Throne of Liberty was very, very much like PvP centric. Like they were very, very focused on PvP being a large part of the game, with a lot of their like world bosses and raids really kind of tying in that world PvP thing, where it's like you have different guilds coming in and fighting for the boss, and it's like you're fighting the boss, but at the same time you're fighting other players, and it adds another layer of difficulty to the game. You had the guildy
yeah,
guild.
well, yeah, but they ruined that because they created it to where you can do alliances with other guilds. So like a lot of the big guilds were teaming up with each other and making it impossible for any of the other smaller guilds to be able to do any of that shit.
But that's going to happen no matter what. Like even if you don't have like a team up aspect, you're going to have people that are able to group together. I mean, you see that with like with BGs where people come in groups. Same thing like
but there's a difference between having like a 10-man pre-made in a BG and fucking 80 people compared to your guild of like 10.
Yeah, I mean, either way, you're still gonna be at a disadvantage. And I think I think whenever you try to simply focus on a sub part of the game, like MMOs people have to remember, like MMOs are RPGs. I think the RPG has to be the main focus of the game, and if it's not, it's just not going to do well. It's not going to resonate with the type of players that are going to be playing this game for a long time, at least in the long run. And I think we're seeing that with all these MMOs that are coming out and just not doing too well. I think another aspect too, it's a lot of these games that are coming out are throwing in a sort of like a lot of microtransactions in there where it's very much like pay to win. Like World of Warcraft kind of slowly started integrating this where it's like you're
paying for convenience, bro.
Yeah, you're able to buy mounts, you're able to buy WoW tokens with money to use gold, and using gold you're able to use gold to then boost your character to not just level it. You could straight up just buy a level 70 boost. Then you could go into WoW and go into trade chat and buy a 70 to 80 boost. And then you can go in there and buy mythic dungeon runs. You can buy heroic raid runs. You can buy mythic raid runs. You could buy 3v3 boosts.
Do you know why? So you know why WoW does the whole being able to purchase a WoW token, right?
No, I know they wanted to combat the gold farmers.
Exactly, and I think, they figured might as well be making money off it. I mean, there's no way to really stop it, so they might as well get in on it too.
Yeah, but they could do something to stop the people from doing those transactions in the game, like dungeon runs and raid runs and 3v3 boosts, like all that stuff. I think doing something like that is super, super important. Another really cool thing that I like that Final Fantasy does is they don't have a damage meter, so it's like you don't have like details to see like who's doing less DPS or more DPS, and I think that
you think that's a good thing?
Yes, I think so. Because it adds another layer of like toxicity to the game.
Okay,
where it's now you see that. Yeah. Now you see someone that's not doing necessarily as well. And like, granted, yes, if they're doing like if everyone's pulling like
call him a shitter.
It's if like everyone's pulling like 200k DPS and you have one person that's pulling like 50k DPS, and yeah, it definitely feels bad, and you kind of start to notice it's like, okay, we're not doing too well. What's going on? Maybe
because of this one person.
Yeah, because this one person isn't pulling their weight. But at the same time, it's like if you're down in the boss, then it shouldn't necessarily be a problem. So something like that. I think little things. I know a lot of people have been big proponents of removing add-ons in the game and kind of reducing what you can do. I think add-ons are great. They have a lot of like quality of life increases that just make the game overall better. But at the same time, it's like, if you have these things that are making the game better, then why not just incorporate it into the game?
Yeah, not even have to go to these third-party sites and do it.
Like doing heroic or mythic raids, like they're literally unplayable without weak auras. Like there's so many mechanics that you need a weak aura to tell you that this is happening. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to beat.
Yeah, you're such a disadvantage.
Yeah, and it's like little things like that. It's like, why are we doing this? Like,
yeah, why is it not already implemented in there? Yeah,
yeah, just incorporate it into the game, make it part of the game, make it tell you like, hey, this is happening. Really cool thing that I liked about like games like Lost Ark or even like Throne of Liberty, they have like you see the area of effect of like where these like big boss AoE mechanics are about to happen, and you know exactly when it's going to happen. So you have that time to move out and avoid this and kind of play your character around that thing. But doing something like that where it's like, wow, just starts telling you like, okay, this is about to happen. Phase 1 or phase 2, whatever, this is happening. Instead of just necessarily just relying so heavily on add-ons like DBM or bigwigs and weak auras.
Well, I know that's a big complaint too in PvP, because they were talking about during that Arena World Championship thing, was that how, they were using a specific UI. It's like, why doesn't Blizzard just implement that stuff into it? Why do you need 15 different freaking add-ons to track everything? That stuff should automatically be in the game. Especially, I mean, again, it's been out for 20 years now.
Yeah, like, it makes it makes solo shuffle like unplayable. Like watching some of when I first started playing World of Warcraft, I used to watch a lot of like WoW PvPers because that's kind of what I kind of initially started playing the game for was PvP. I loved PvP, and I would kind of raid a little bit less frequently. And to go from watching players like that I used to watch back in the day, like Sea-Doo or like Wreckful, and like seeing their UIs from back then to like seeing them now, it's like you can't even see your character. It's like there's so many add-ons that are going on, and it's basically like these are necessary because there's so many things going on that if you don't have these things, it's just going to be you're not going to know what's going on. And I think that does a disservice for the game, especially for new players. If a new player's coming in and they watch a YouTube video basically telling them like, hey, you need all these things on your UI just to be able to play the game, because otherwise if you don't have it, you're just going to do terrible.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm going to go into this next segment real quick. Or not real quick, but so speaking of Blizzard, they issued a statement saying that they have issued gameplay suspensions for players that intentionally left Mythic Plus groups a ton of times during Season 1 so far. Now, the suspensions, they weren't like given to people who abandoned occasionally, with emergencies, stuff like that, but the people who were joining groups, waiting for the key to start, and then just leaving. And I guess they're going to be treating this like any other penalty in the game, where they're going to like keep an eye on it, and repeat offenders will be getting escalated penalties. So do you think that this is a good thing that they implemented?
I think it's good.
Do you think it's like too late though? Do you think they should have done this like a long time ago?
It's hit or miss, because like the last thing you want like is to kind of just waste your time when you just don't feel like you're going to be able to complete a key. But at the same time, it's like you don't want people just leaving just because, and you'll see this all the time in Mythic Dungeon Run. It's like you pull the first boss and you wipe, and people just leave automatically. And it's like, okay, why are we leaving? Let's try and finish this. Let's just see if we can finish it and go from there. Like, yeah, if you're constantly dying to the same boss or the same mechanic, then yeah, everyone should probably leave. I think there should be almost like a surrender button where everyone has to agree to leave at the same time, versus it's just one person leaves and then maybe the other 4 people still wanted to stay in and try and complete it. It's very discouraging to people, especially because like if you don't really know what's going on, like maybe it's your first Mythic Dungeon Run and you just see a player leave after one pull, and maybe you're tanking or maybe you're healing, you're going to feel like it was your fault that this person left, that maybe you did something wrong. Versus like if you're able to kind of talk through it and figure out what's going on and maybe come in, pull together and complete the dungeon, you can kind of start talking about your mistakes and see what happened and see how you can kind of progress and do better.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, and I think it's a good thing too, because in specifically in PvP, and like Solo Shuffle and BG Blitz, like they implemented something where when you abandon a match, you get a 30-minute deserter debuff, and then like that increases, like so like the first time you do it, it's like 30 minutes. Then if you leave again, you end up getting like an hour. And so like the more you leave, the higher, and the more the higher your deserter debuff goes. I feel like suspensions are okay, but I feel like they should have started with like a debuff. Maybe give people a warning for leaving instead of just hitting them with a count suspension. Again, unless they were, they unfortunately like didn't release their. This is how we determine who's a chronic leaver and who's not. So it's like, yeah, maybe it may be a count suspension for people that would like just just rapidly join and leave just to troll. But I don't know. I feel like maybe like a warning should have been issued at first.
And I don't necessarily think people are really joining and leaving just to troll. I think a lot of the times it's people they just don't want to deal with potentially just wasting their time. And that's one of the things that I kind of dislike a little bit about Mythic Dungeons, is adding that kind of layer of like, okay, you have to time this, you have to beat this in a specific time, because it in the long run, like MMOs, like you're gonna fail, you're gonna die in in specific mechanics or against specific bosses or against specific mobs. Like that happens. That's part of the game. And I think just coming to that understanding that it's like, okay, you're gonna die, but if you can kind of figure out what you're doing wrong and what you can do to get better, eventually you're going to be able to beat it, unless you're kind of just at such a big gear disadvantage. So maybe removing the whole timing aspect of it. And again, I know that kind of.
But that's why they got the looking for dungeon group, or not, but the dungeon queues. So like the dungeons now you do with not LFG, but the dungeon finder tool, whatever you call it. All those dungeons are the mythic dungeons. But I think you said this too, I think it was like last week or the week prior, that there's such a huge skip in difficulty between doing random dungeons and then hopping into like a mythic, and there's no real like, entry, like you just have to do it.
Yeah, it's insanely like, so like a normal dungeon and a heroic dungeon are just so much easier than what your mythic 0 would be. And that's one of those things. It's like it shouldn't be that way. It should be a very, very much like progress very linearly. I think when you're 3-4xing the difficulty level just for a mythic 0 from a heroic dungeon, that's insane, because you definitely have a lot of casual players that play MMOs and just want to do your basic stuff, but maybe they want to kind of put their foot into some end game stuff. You kind of close them out when it's like, okay, you have to, if you don't watch a tutorial on how to do this specific mechanic, you're just going to die.
See, but this is why they need to do that thing that you were saying about just implementing, DBM or bigwigs into the freaking game. So if these people, especially if you are new, because I talked about this with somebody before, like if you're new, how do you know what add-ons to get? How do you even know that you need add-ons? Like all that stuff should automatically be in the game, so interrupt this person in 5-4, you know what I mean, or move over here in 5-4, without having to download 20 different add-ons telling you what to do.
Yeah, and maybe at least I think this would be great if they added a lot of those mechanics to your like standard heroic, standard normal, because I think when you go into a heroic dungeon, like your gear is probably, maybe not in the beginning, but your gear should be good enough to where it's like, if you stand in it, like you're not going to die, but you'll still know it's like, okay, this is bad. Yeah. I probably shouldn't stand in this, or okay, I need to kick this, or okay, I need to do this specific mechanic. But when you just completely don't have these mechanics in a normal heroic, it kind of ruins the purpose, because it's like you should be using normal heroics to learn the mechanics and learn this stuff, and then be able to jump into a mythic. I think that would be great, because it's the same thing with raid. It's like if you go into an LFR, like I could go into an LFR and like
stand in every fucking thing.
yeah, not like pay any attention to what's going on and just stand in everything and just be completely fine. Like not do any of the mechanics and be completely fine. So you have your normal player that doesn't watch any like tutorials, or doesn't see like doesn't look into what you're supposed to do, doesn't have these add-ons, and they're going to be like, oh, I cleared LFR and it was super easy, I'm going to go into a normal, and then just get completely shit on and get kicked from the group. And it's like, oh, what's going on? It's like LFR was so easy, like why am I getting kicked? It's like I thought I was doing everything right. That's what I'm saying. It's like everything kind of needs to be very linear and progressive, where it's like if you feel like you can do this in normal, then you should be able to do it in heroic, as long as your gear is good enough.
But do you really think though that majority of these people, I'm gonna call them chronic leavers, are due to like one wipe and then just dipping because the people don't really know what they're doing?
Oh, 100%. Like I watch a lot of like big mythic dungeon PvEers on like YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff. Like when I was super into doing mythics, and it was very common. It's like if you wiped on a specific boss, especially during a specific augmentation, like you knew 100% like you weren't going to time the key, so everyone would just leave. They're like, okay, let's just leave. And even if it was like a random group that you joined into, it's like everyone like you wiped, okay, we're leaving. One person leaves and it just ruins the whole group.
But do you think account suspensions is too much? You think account suspensions are okay?
I think that's fine. I'm good with it. It's going to kind of force people now to have to play through it and maybe people are going to be a little bit more. The bad thing with this is now you're going to have, it's going to be harder to get into groups if you're just like a.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
If you're just like a casual player that's like trying to get into a group and you're like maybe not playing a class that's like tier 1, you're playing more of like a tier 2, tier 3 class, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to get into a random group because everyone is going to be looking at like, okay, I need to have the perfect comp because I can't leave this group, because if I leave, my account's going to get suspended.
No, that's a good point. I mean, I guess the only way to get around that is to form your own groups with your friends or guildies.
Yeah. But even then, it's like that becomes a lot harder because most guilds aren't as social anymore, and I think less and less people are kind of wanting to do mythic dungeons or raids, and
we saw like how much they've declined over the past couple of weeks too. Because I know the season's coming to an end here soon anyway. I know we're waiting for the next season before we hop back into it. It's been shitty dungeons, dude. All these dungeons I think are garbage.
No, 100%.
Besides like 2 of them. I like Miss, but the other ones, I'm surprised they didn't just, with the new expansion, new dungeons, they should have just had all the new ones in there too. But okay, so before we get to our next topic, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at the BS Show GG and on YouTube at the BS Show GG. Also, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So, Path of Exile 2 came out with early access on Friday that you can gain access if you purchase it or purchase the Access Pass. For their lowest tier was like $30. Did you say there's like $100-something tier, Steve?
I think there's like a $400 tier, if I remember right.
So,
and I actually saw quite a bit of people that purchased that tier level too.
Was it? I don't even know if it was purchasable through Steam or was it through their website for the $400?
I think it might have been just through their website. Maybe.
Yeah, Steam here shows their highest one is 100. I'm sure it's probably on their website. That's still crazy though for early access. I mean, what do you? You get like extra points in there, titles, frames, basically just a lot of cosmetic stuff. So nothing really huge, but I mean, Path of Exile 1 was pretty successful from what I've seen. So I'm sure it got a lot of people who were like really hyped for this game. I didn't even know that I know you said that about the $400.
Yeah, there's a $480 pack. So you get 2 extra Path of Exile early access keys. You get some armor packs. You get different portraits. You get more points. What else do you get? You get a couple
Holy
other
crap,
like,
dude.
statues, different hideouts, a bunch of skins. Like there's definitely a lot that you get.
Holy shit, dude! I'm on their website right now. Yeah, I'm looking at this. Holy crap! So you got $480, $240, $160, $160, and then $30.
Yeah, and I've seen like in the main town, like I've seen a lot of players with
that glow
skin. Yeah. I've seen a lot of players with that skin. So it's like there's definitely people that are buying it for sure.
Damn, dude.
Yeah.
That is do you think this game's worth $480?
If it's anything like the first game, this game's incredible. Like I've played games where it's like I would pay like $200, $300 for it because there's just so much content. So like one of my favorite games that I've played in the last couple of years is Remnant 2. Remnant 2 was I think I paid $40 for it. I bought it on sale, and the replayability and the amount of different ways that you could play the game was incredible. Like I think I have maybe like 200, 300 hours in that game, and every single time that I replay another campaign, I get to experience things that I haven't experienced before, which is crazy. And one of the things with Path of Exile is like you saw the passive tree. Like there's so many different ways that you can go.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like there's almost like an unlimited amount of ways that you can play the game, because it's like you could play the game one way one time, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna make a new character, same type of character. I'm gonna make like a warrior again, but this time I'm gonna go in a completely different way and see what I can do with this one.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they haven't put out though when it's actually being fully released.
They said around 6 months. They said they're expecting early access to be about 6 months.
I do know. I read PoE 1 was in early access, I think, for like 10 months, I think. So I mean, I'm sure it's in between that 6 to 10 months. So like at least fall, late spring or late summer, early fall.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you don't even really have to pay for the early access. You can just wait until it's free to play.
Dude, and it's so fun, dude. I totally recommend buying it.
And they were even talking about how they might make the early access free down the road. So it's like you can just completely wait until it's completely free to play the game for free, and get to enjoy everything for free, completely for free. And people are still going to play it, especially once the game is fully released, because they're doing a really good job where it's like they're not releasing everything all at once. Like you're only getting a certain section of the campaign. So you're not really even going to get to experience everything. Like
people were already complaining about that with the early access, saying they weren't able to do everything. It's like that's the whole point of this is to like to test it out.
Yeah. It's like that's the thing people don't realize. It's like, but even then, it's like just Act 1. I think they were saying like your casual, like normal ARPG player is probably going to take them like 40, 60 hours. Like there was a couple people that like hardcore like action RPG players that were getting through Act 1 in like 10, 15 hours, which is still insane. Like that's still a good amount of time, especially for like a $40 game. Like if you think about it, like you're paying $60, $70 for a game right now, and it's like you're lucky to have like 15, 20 hours of gameplay with it. Like I've had so many games that I've bought for like $70, whatever, brand new like AAA game, and you beat it in 15 hours, and it's like, okay, it's done. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. But this one, it's like, okay, even like at the bare minimum, say you just completely just run through the entire thing, you're done with it in 15 hours. But okay, it's like it still has replayability because you can go play a different class. You can play the same class and just play it differently this time, go down a different tree. And that's not even going into the different like subclasses that you can get per class, which is insane.
You talking about like how I was playing like a mercenary and like while I'm able to shoot projectiles, but then I can go into what kind of projectile I'm shooting and if it's fire or like poison and like all this other shit.
Yeah.
No, I thought, dude, so I've never played an ARPG, never played Diablo, never played PoE 1, and we were trying to get Ryan to freaking play this yesterday, and I just was like waiting to hop on to play. The graphics were amazing. I know at first I was a little, I didn't really like the camera angle because I'm like, I like, especially in like WoW, I like the, cosmetics. I like the way the outfits look, and, for the camera being that far away, like it's very detailed. I mean, you can scroll in and like look at your stuff, but yeah, I thought the graphics were great. The intro scene I thought was so badass, where you're choosing your characters, you're all, they're all about to get hung. And as soon as you choose your class, they freaking cut your rope breaks as they hang everybody and you escape. I thought that was such a cool intro scene into the game. The talent tree, is, I compared to what I compared to, it looked like a galaxy. There was just so much stuff. I mean, it is very confusing at first, but they did make it easy. You can kind of search, like Steve was showing me, let's just say you're looking for like fire abilities. You're playing like a sorcerer and you want to, level up fire abilities. You can just go and do the search, hit fire, and then it glows all the little talent points that have, anything to do with fire damage, and you kind of decide how you want to build. I mean, I know there probably will be build paths in the future that they'll post online, but it feels like you can just really customize it like however you want with that tree. The combat was really good. It was weird. I could not do the mouse one to move. That was very, very awkward for me. I do like the WASD compared to the mouse. Which one did you like better, the WASD or the mouse one to move?
I mean, I've played a decent amount of ARPG. I know I've tried to get you to play Lost Ark a lot, and it has a very similar movement gameplay style as what this has, where it's like click to move, and you're really having to kind of kite around, and your movement is all kind of based on like where you're clicking. So I'm kind of used to this type of gameplay. But I know a lot of people were basically saying like WASD was insane, and it's like, so I tried it. It took me a little bit to kind of get used to it, but I do like both styles. Like what
about controller? Do you want to try controller?
I don't think I would. I'm not a big fan of controllers. I think I only ever really use a controller when I have to use a controller.
I think it'd be weird to move in there, wouldn't it, with a controller?
Well, I played Diablo, so that's kind of how I started playing. How I got into like ARPGs was like I played Diablo 3 when it came out for the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, I believe. And that's what really got me into Diablo, and just learning how to do everything on a controller was awesome. It was a lot of fun. So I don't see how it'd be much different. Like, you're still moving your character around with a joystick and all your abilities. Like, you don't have a whole lot of abilities. You have your your QERT, and then maybe like your health potion and all that stuff. So you have enough buttons to be able to do that with a controller. So I think it's fine.
So what about, do you have any dislikes?
So far nothing.
Don't lie, bro. Don't. There's nothing you dislike.
No. So far it's been really fun. I like the difficulty aspect.
No,
it feels
dislikes,
a lot harder.
not likes.
No, I know. There's
I'm
nothing
saying, you
that
got
nothing. nothing that I dislike about it right now. Everything feels smooth. Everything is fun.
Okay, what about that? What about that boss that you couldn't see the mechanic?
Honestly, the only reason I didn't even really see it is because I was playing like a lightning class, and I would shoot I have an ability that's like a lightning rod, and when I would shoot it, it would basically put like the little lightning effect around the boss, or around where I shoot the lightning rod at.
Yeah.
And I saw myself shooting it, and then all of a sudden he would do his lightning ability where he would create lightning around his base, and I thought it was my ability that was creating that lightning around the base.
Right into it.
Well, I wouldn't even walk into it. I just wouldn't move. I would just stand in front of him, because it's like, oh, it's my lightning rod. So I'm just shooting at it, just shooting more lightning abilities, and I would just die. And I was like, what the heck is going on? But once I kind of saw it, I was like, oh, okay, this is why I'm not seeing it. It's because I'm shooting my lightning rod, and I think it's my ability, but in reality, it's this guy's charging up, and he's getting ready to shoot his lightning breath at us. So
yeah, I think you just had to just stay further away from him or something like that.
Well, it's just rolled to the side. That's really it. But so far everything's been good. It's been super fun. I like how difficult it is. That's one of the things that with Diablo, it's like it's very easy in the beginning. Like, unless you're playing like a more the one thing Diablo does is it adds like different difficulty layers. It's not just all the same difficulty, which I tend to enjoy games when it's just one difficulty. It's like you can either beat it, or you're just gonna not beat it, and that's it. Like, there's no in between. Like, you can't make it easier. Maybe you can make it easier with gear and like abilities and all that stuff, but the only way to get through this is to learn the mechanics, and that's it.
Did you like Diablo, how hard that worm boss was? I mean, how many times did you wipe out? It caused us to wipe on that?
No. I think I was the closest to beating it by myself, and even then, like the second time that we ran through it and we beat it, I beat it by myself because you died. Well,
dude, you died so many times. Do you think it scales depending on how many people are attacking it?
I don't know, because I beat it by myself on my warrior, and it didn't feel too difficult. But then at the same time, like, I already kind of knew what the mechanics were, and I knew what I was kind of looking for.
Watch out for the fucking tail.
Yeah. I think it's definitely harder as a melee class when you don't have a blocking ability. So the warrior felt really good because you had your shield, and you can kind of tank a lot of those abilities. Versus like when I was playing the monk, it was like I could kind of go in for some quick hits, and then after that, it was like, okay, I need to roll out.
Yeah, you kept dying, dude.
Yeah. It's like you kind of try to figure out like what the sweet spot is, and like how much damage you can get in before you need to roll out the way. It felt very similar to like a Dark Souls, like a Souls-like game, where it's like, okay, you're going in, getting a couple hits. Okay, now I need to roll out and like kite for a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go in, get a little hits, and okay, now I'm gonna kite for a little bit. Okay, he's going into this damage sequence. Let me get out of the way. Let me roll out of the way. So it's very enjoyable. Like, I love the gameplay loop. It's super fun. So I'm definitely excited to see kind of how they complete this game, and what the final version of the game is going to be. So
my only dislike is that it is very confusing. Again, it's probably just because I've never played an ARPG. So it was like the movement was different, the camera style, but I mean, I have gotten used to it. And then the same thing is like, I mean, I can appreciate the sophisticatedness of the talent tree, but holy shit, dude, is that thing so confusing. Like, there's just so... Dude, I'm dead serious. If you guys haven't had a chance to see the talent tree, just Google it, and your jaws can hit the floor like mine did, because you're just gonna be like, how the hell am I supposed to figure this out? And like I said, luckily you could search, for certain ability, kind of abilities, and you can find it that way. And like I said, I'm sure there'll be guides in the future. But for somebody who's like very new to this kind of game, god damn, was that overwhelming.
And again, they added they I think they learned from PoE 1 to PoE 2 that adding a way to make things easier in terms of the talent tree is very important, because it's like there were so many times where you would go online and you would see someone that was going for a build and they accidentally went down the wrong path, and now they just completely ruined their build.
I had to make a whole new freaking character.
It's very frustrating, but like at the same time, it's like they're allowing you the option to reset your tree. They give you the opportunity to search and find which way you want to go. Every character, no matter what class you play, has the exact same talent tree. So there's no differences in talent trees. It's just where you start. So like if you're playing a ranger, you're starting on this zone. If you're playing a sorcerer, you're starting over on this area. But eventually, like if you really wanted to, you can kind of start kind of getting into that area of like a sorcerer or a warrior or whatever, if you wanted to kind of switch up the way you were playing. A really cool thing that they're doing with this game, it's like, the gems that you're able to put in your weapons for your abilities and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You can, they're adding a way so you can quickly swap weapons, and each weapon has your very specific abilities. So if you're playing if you're playing your mercenary and you have like a frost crossbow, and then you switch over to like daggers, your dagger has like a fire build, so you can quickly swap over, and your abilities swap over too, so you're able to kind of combo those things together, which is pretty awesome.
Imagine if like New World. I think you're able to do that there.
Yeah, kind of in a sense. Yeah.
So, okay, you've played Diablo 2. Which do you honestly think is better so far? I mean, I know we've only just touched the tip of the iceberg with this game, and we haven't played everything on it, but what do you think is going to be more popular and better?
I think PoE 2 is going to be far more popular than the most recent Diablos, and for that reason, I think the biggest reason is the ability to customize as much as you want. You can kind of play the game the way you want to play. I think eventually,
and free to play too.
Yeah, there's going to be like the best builds and all this other stuff, but it's different. I mean, I love Diablo. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Diablo is super, super fun, but I think in terms of like how you play and what you play and what abilities you pick, it's very much like set. Like there's not really a lot of ways to deviate from how you're playing it. Like you don't have as much customization. If you're going for like a specific build, like I love playing like druids, and it's like if you're playing like a druid, it's like you kind of have to figure out, okay, do I want to go werewolf, or do I want to go bear? What I want to do, it's like, okay, if I'm going this build, then I need to make sure that I'm picking these specific things. And even then, it's like you don't have as many talents as you would in like say PoE 2, so you can't really deviate from what you're picking. Versus like PoE 2, I feel like you can deviate a little bit, and you can still kind of have your core build set up.
I think it's kind of. Oh, here you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I was gonna say is you can kind of tell that Blizzard is really nervous with PoE 2, because I'm sure you saw that tweet that the dev put out, basically saying, "How about we classify games, as roguelike or when we talk about games like roguelike and Souls-like, he thinks that ARPGs should be quote unquote Diablo-like, even though Diablo wasn't like the first ARPG. I mean, I'd argue that it was probably like the first most popular one after its release in 1997, but you can tell that they're kind of bitter on the success of PoE 2 so far.
Yeah, especially because it's hard when you're losing to a game that's free to play.
Yeah.
It's like you basically everything that PoE 2, like PoE 2 added a lot of things that people have been asking Blizzard to do with Diablo for years. And it's basically just like the developers of PoE 2 were just like listening. And it's like, oh, people want this stuff? Okay, let's add it. People want this? Let's add it. People want this? Let's add it. And that's the thing. It's like players that play your games, they know what kind of stuff they want to see in the games. And I think developers really need to start taking notice and start incorporating that stuff into the games, because otherwise it's like you're just going to end up in a situation where people are just going to flock to the other game. Or if another if PoE 2 wasn't good and another ARPG came out, they're going to flock to that game. It's just a constant cycle. Like, you want people to stay and play your game and enjoy your game, but at the same time, it's like, if something is not good and people aren't enjoying it, you need to fix it and update it, and not just release a new expansion or release a new version of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can agree. So what do you think of the classes? Do you have any like favorites so far?
So I've only gotten a chance to play 3 classes so far. I really like the warrior playstyle. It's super super fun.
Is that the most? Did you make that one after we played?
No. After the first time we played, I only got to like level 3, level 4, I think. But the one that we have the highest was my ranger. That one's pretty fun as well too. It's definitely different. Like, I'm more used to playing like up close classes in ARPGs. I very rarely play like casters, so I know like nice. It's different, and it's like I'm so used to playing like classes where like you're up front and personal, and it's like you're getting into the boss's zone and attacking from there. The monk was interesting. I've seen a lot of like videos, and the monk looks super sick.
Did you say it was supposed to be like one of the best classes so far?
Yeah, that's what people are saying. People are saying monks are really, really good. I just need to look and see like what the play style is. I think one of the things too, it's when we were playing, I wasn't really stopping to like read my abilities and see what my abilities
were. We were just burning through. We were just running.
Yeah. So I was just going around, just hitting buttons and not really knowing what I was doing, and kind of noticing it's like, okay, I'm using this ability. This ability does this, but I didn't know if it was like interacting with anything else. Yeah. And that's kind of what I noticed when I was playing my ranger. It's like I stopped and I read my abilities, and I was like, oh, I have this ability here that if I shoot it and then I shoot my other ability, I do more damage with my other ability, because this ability over here increases or multiplies the amount of damage that I do with this type of elemental damage, like my lightning rod ability.
I think I was reading that about monks, so you're supposed to chain abilities together like that too.
Yeah. So it's like kind of learning that thing, and then at the same time, it's like when I chose my abilities, as I was like engraving new things, I probably wasn't picking the best things that kind of work well together. Versus like my ranger, I actually like stopped and I was like, okay, I'm. It seems like I'm kind of going like a lightning build. Okay, let me start choosing stuff that kind of correlates with lightning. Okay, I have this ability here, this ability here. Okay, let's do this.
But do you think eventually you'll be able to kind of, I'm going to call it mastering all the elements, or do you think you're going to be kind of pigeonholed into, okay, you're going to do fire, or you're going to do ice, you're going to do lightning?
I don't know. I'm curious to see what you can do. I'm sure you will be, because like when I was looking at the tree, like the tree that I'm kind of going towards, it's like it's master of elements. So it's like I'm sure there's going to be ways that I can kind of incorporate other things into it.
So I was going to say my favorite class is definitely mercenary. So I think I did sorcerer the first one, and it was kind of like, it was similar to like a warlock. I think it was. I think I had to like put like a debuff on him, and then cast something after that. But I did notice that it felt like we had a slight advantage playing ranged class over melee. I wonder if we're less tanky though. And like some of those fights, like that worm one, I mean, we were just AoEing everything down, and it felt like we were in such an advantage being ranged compared to when you were playing that monk.
No, 100%. Like, but at the same time, like I'm sure there's gonna be fights where it's like it's gonna be more beneficial for you to be melee. Yeah, like they always kind of do something like that, where it's like you're punished a little bit more based on what type of class you are, and you're punished less based on what class you are. So I'm sure there's going to be something like that.
Okay, so to wrap this up, so out of 10, what rating would you give PoE 2 so far based on what we've seen in the classes that are available?
I think like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Probably like a 9. I give it a strong 9.
Yeah, I give it like an 8.5 so far. And I'm sure this is gonna go higher once I play it more. I mean, we've only got how much time do we have in the game? Oh, 4 hours. So I think once I get more used to it, I did enjoy it, dude. I'm actually gonna be playing it later today too. So before we get into our last topic, if you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at the BS Show GG and on YouTube at the BS Show GG. Also, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So speaking of new games that have come out and have been competing with Blizzard, NetEase just released Marvel Rivals on December 5th, and so far, a lot of people are saying that it is going to be the Overwatch killer. And I was kind of surprised that companies are still entering the hero shooter space especially after the $400 million disaster that was Concord that got pulled 2 weeks after its launch. So what is your initial take on Marvel Rivals? We played it for quite a bit the past couple of days. How are you feeling so far about it?
It's definitely different. It's not like, I think when I initially saw it, like a lot of people were very heavily comparing it to Overwatch. And granted, like there was a lot of similarities to Overwatch, but it feels very different. It feels a lot more, I think, less chaotic than what Overwatch is. Like I've had games of Overwatch where it's like you don't really know what's going on. Like you're kind of getting bombarded by ultimates and bombarded by different hero abilities. But it's crazy because like I know when Concord came out, people were kind of saying like, oh, people don't want hero shooters. Like hero shooters are kind of dead, blah blah blah. And I think this kind of goes to show you that people just want good games, and like an IP. And I think we talk about this all the time, like an IP that people can connect to, because that's what you want. Like when you're playing these games, like hero shooters, quote unquote, like you want to play as a character that you want to be. Like you want to play as Spider-Man, you want to play as Thor, you want to play as the Hulk, and all these other characters that you already know who they are. And I think that's one of the really good things that Blizzard did with Overwatch is, as they released Overwatch, they released all these cinematics that allowed you to kind of connect with the characters and get to know who the characters are and really identify with the characters. So you knew it's like, okay, I like Reinhardt. I like Reinhardt's story. Let me play Reinhardt. I like Tracer. I like Tracer's story. Let me play Tracer. So it's like you get to kind of learn a little bit more about each of these characters, and I think that's super, super important with these types of games, because if you don't have that connected ability, it's like you're not going to enjoy it as much. You're not going to enjoy playing as these characters as much as you probably should.
Well, were you surprised to see just how many characters they have starting out?
Yeah, and I think there's another 12 coming.
And you're saying too, they're not locking any characters behind battle passes or any of that stuff like Overwatch did.
And I think that's super smart, because I think people have started to realize that if you're locking everything behind microtransactions, you're really kind of you're losing a base like in your audience. Like you already have people already that are going to have that barrier to entry that are just going to be like, okay, I'm just not going to play this game. Versus like if you still have that, you have it available, and they have their battle pass available. They have different skins that you can unlock if you want to pay for it. But it's mostly you're just paying to speed things up rather than paying to get it. Like you're still able to unlock everything if you want to play. At least that's from what they're saying. It's like everything is unlockable based on your gameplay. But at the same time, if you really wanted to, if you wanted to pay to get everything, you can.
So are you gonna get the battle pass?
I don't know yet. It's hard because it's like I feel like I'm playing so many different games.
Well, so many good games have been coming out.
Yeah, so it's like to justify paying a battle pass, and then I might not end up playing the game. Like I would do this all the time when I would play like games like Fall Guys or Fortnite, and it's like, okay, I'm enjoying this right now. Let me just get the battle pass. There's something in there that I really want in the battle pass, so I'm gonna get it. And then I would play it for a couple days, and then I just don't touch it.
But weren't you saying something about the battle pass? How it's not gonna be like a season by season thing?
That's what they're saying. They're saying that even after season 1, like you can still go back and play and grind out season 1 battle pass. So I wonder how that's going to work. But who knows? Maybe they're just gonna roll everything over, and you're just gonna be able to continuously play and unlock things. But that would be super, super cool if they did that.
I noticed there was an article that was put out saying that the players have an issue with the battle pass, that the XP isn't earned just by merely playing. I'm guessing that it's gonna be locked behind like achievements and stuff like that you got to gain XP by, kind of similar how Call of Duty has like those daily challenges and stuff like that. So like I said, I haven't purchased it, but
that would actually be super cool, because it really is forcing your people to be very you have to have some sort of like mission when you're going in there to play.
Not
the game.
Just run and play in. Not just run and shoot.
I used to play this game back in the day on a PlayStation 2 called Battlefield Modern Combat, and the way you ranked up is you would get achievements, and based on the amount of achievements that you get, so it was a little bit faster in the beginning as you were kind of ranking up. So you would start off as like private, then PFC, then like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like until you got to like 5-star general. But it's like every time you did an achievement, it would give you points, and these points would add up to eventually like ranking you up. And they were very like deliberate. It was like kill 5 people with the sniper rifle, kill 5 people with C4, destroy 10 vehicles or destroy 25 vehicles, get 25 kills without dying, get 10 kills without dying. So it was like very deliberate, and it's like you knew exactly what you needed to do. And once you did all that stuff, it's like you would eventually rank up, and that's how you ranked up. So it's like when you would see people that were like 5-star generals or whatever colonels, it's like, okay, these people are good. And so versus like you would have people that would play the game for years and they would be locked at like sergeant or something. You're like, okay, these guys probably aren't that good.
But what about casual players that just want to hop on, play, and not worry about all that stuff?
I mean, like, that's fine. At the same time, it's like you have different game modes, and I think that's what's important about having the option to have your quick play and still have ranked gameplay. I think the one thing that people really need to or developers need to figure out is how to manage their quick play, where it's kind of MMR based. So it's like if you're queuing into a quick play game, you don't want to queue into people that are like, say they go with your standard bronze, silver, etc. ranking system. You don't want to be a bronze player queuing up against like master players. Yeah, it's like true. You want it to be someone like, okay, I'm queuing up maybe bronze, silver, gold, and that's kind of our general thing, or maybe like just bronze, silver, similar like rank MMR. So who knows how they do it, but I know Overwatch does something similar where it's like you're ranked like a lot of your when you're doing your placement matches initially with Overwatch for ranked, your placement MMR is based on your quick play MMR. So it's like the better you do in quick play, the higher your MMR is for your initial ranked MMR.
So after we played this for a few hours. So how do you think the balancing is so far? I noticed I was telling you like Thor, how fucking strong it was. You know, I noticed like him and Venom, that tanks are insanely strong. Do you think that they need to definitely iron out some of these characters?
I think it. Granted, there's always going to be balancing issues in the beginning when a game first comes out, and I think they'll start to realize that and they'll start to make adjustments. But I think it's good because we kind of noticed it yesterday when we played against like a more coordinated team. Like you weren't able to really just run in there with Thor, like versus when we played with that last team when you could just run in there and just be unkillable. yeah, you just be unkillable some of these tanks. But that's the thing. It's like I think once you kind of start playing with these more coordinated groups and you kind of start figuring out, it's like, okay, these people are just diving your backline. Let's just instantly just switch over and just punish them versus like just letting them kill all your healers and squishies and then everyone else is just dying. Cause that's what ended up happening. It's like I would be in the backline healing and all of a sudden someone dives me and now I have to run away and heal myself or heal the other healer. And it's like, now you guys are dying because you guys aren't getting heals and our DPS is dying because they're not getting heals. So we all just kind of wipe versus like we kind of saw it when like
it sounds like a healer diff.
No. We just saw it like when you would dive in, they would just instantly just focus you and you would just die right away. So I that's the thing. It's like once people start figuring that concept of it out, and it took a while too with Overwatch where it's like, because initially for the longest time I think a lot of people were playing a lot more slowly and not diving in as much. But I think once people start figuring out, it's like, okay, if tanks are going to dive in, let's just instantly switch.
They knew
them.
You could,
let's punish them. The tank shouldn't have to kind of dive back and just help. They should just be focused on diving and creating chaos. The DPS should be switching over and killing the tank that's diving the backlines and kind of go from there.
So do you have a favorite character so far in the game?
So I forget her name.
I thought you were going to say the shark, the little shark person.
The shark is cool. For me, it's either that like elf looking girl from Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. The one that wears green. I forget her name. Her or the shark. And then I like why am I blanking on his name now? The main character from Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill. Okay. Star-Lord. So I like him. I like his gameplay. So far those are the only like characters I've really played. I played Thor a little bit and he was cool. But the characters that I've enjoyed the most were the two healers and then Star-Lord.
See, I played a bunch of that. I think it's pronounced his name Namor. He was almost like Aquaman. So he was super fun. Like you're able to, you're able. I was able to throw tridents, and your ult is like a huge AOE stun, and it like summons Giganto, who dives in like this. That's what. Remember, I was like, what is this thing coming out of the freaking sky that's stunning everybody from my ult? Well, that's what it is. It's a Giganto, and it dives in the little AOE circle that you put down, and it stuns everybody. And then it felt kind of like a Torbjorn from Overwatch, because Namor, he places down like octopuses who like shoot in water and shit like that. Acting as like turrets. So like if you're hitting people with your tridents, your octopuses are attacking those same things too.
Okay.
So do you think that this is better than Overwatch?
It's hard to say.
I think it has the lore advantage.
In a sense, it's a more identifiable IP for sure than Overwatch. But I loved Overwatch. Like when I tell you, like the game that really got me into esports and made me kind of start realizing that esports is huge and it's such an amazing community was Overwatch. Like the initial Overwatch League scene and like how everything was happening was incredible. Like
it wasn't League of Legends or Call of Duty, it was freaking Overwatch.
It was Overwatch for me. Like I loved it. Like granted, at the time I was playing a lot of Overwatch, and I had a lot of friends who were on like very good like Overwatch teams. Like I had some people that were in contenders. I had some friends that were in contenders, and then some friends that were in like the leagues right below that. So I was like constantly involved in the Overwatch esports scenes and like seeing people play. Like I would spectate those scrims all the times, and I was in the Discord channels like talking to people and like just trying to get better and like do all these different things. And when Overwatch League was announced and the way they were kind of trying to do it was like very professional and like very much like city based, I thought that was like a super, super cool idea. And I thought this was going to be like the future of esports, where every esports team or esports league was going to be associated to a city. And that's how it was going to be. It's like you were going to have these people that were traveling from LA to Dallas, or playing people or you were going to have people play LA, Dallas, or Shanghai, whatever. I think they just got they flew a little bit too close to the sun and kind of over leveraged themselves. And that's probably the biggest reason. Granted, there was a lot of controversy surrounding some of the Overwatch League players, with a lot of like, chatting with underage girls and all this other stuff. So I think that probably didn't help. But at the same time, it's like, it was super, super exciting. I think they did a really good job with casting and choosing who was kind of involved with that. But I loved it. So like for me, it's difficult to say whether or not this would surpass Overwatch, because
I think more time playing the game.
Not just the game, but I really would like to see how the esports develops. I think games like this, it needs to have a very healthy esports scene for it to do well. If it doesn't, then it's just going to die down. I think any game, any shooter, competitive game, any game that has some sort of competitive aspect to it needs to have a healthy esports scene. If it doesn't, it's just going to die. And we see this all the time. Like if you think about like your biggest games out there now with like League, Fortnite, Valorant, stuff like that, like the esports scenes are huge. CSGO is huge. And then you have games that are kind of like slowly dying out because esports is dying out with like Apex Legends and World of Warcraft, stuff like that. It's like it needs to be super healthy, and it needs to be super exciting, and it needs to be enjoyable to watch and consume, and like it just adds a whole nother layer of the game. Like for me, like Hearthstone was the same way. Like I loved Hearthstone, and like I was very involved in the competitive scene of Hearthstone when it initially started, and it's like just sitting there playing in tournaments all the time, and like constantly pushing ladder, and like constantly watching tournament play, and like analyzing what people were doing, and like getting an opportunity to see, it's like, okay, I did this here, and like talking to people as like you're rewatching your VODs, and like talking about like what you could have done better and what you should have done, and what you did that was good, what you did that was bad. Like I think that's super awesome. So I think we really need to wait and see how this develops. And I think if it develops into a big esports game, which I think it very much could, because
they got that tournament that's going to be going on.
Yeah, and I think Marvel is so big and so identifiable that it very easily could turn into this humongous thing. But I think we need to wait and see what it becomes before that happens.
I can agree. I just I really did enjoy playing Marvel Rivals. I probably am going to be playing that more than I do Overwatch. I haven't played Overwatch in quite some time. Now, like when it comes to the competitive aspect of it, I just feel like right now, like there's heroes that are like extremely broken, and then there's others that are kind of pretty much useless. So I wonder if they're going to be doing something in the future of like, you know, disabling certain heroes that are like insanely OP. And the other thing I think they really need to look at, you know how they have that aspect of the whole team up thing where certain heroes are paired with others and it gives you a special ability, kind of like the Hulk in Wolverine where he can launch you. It just seems like that'd be kind of broken, you know, unless they find a way of like removing it or balancing it, because it seems like people would just run the same, you know, couple heroes if they get the best abilities with it.
But that adds a whole nother layer of strategy. I think that's super cool. I think that's a really cool thing that they added, because it's like now you really have to start thinking. It's like, okay, if this guy's playing, if someone on my team's playing this character, maybe I should switch over to this character. Maybe I'm not as good at this one character, but because of this team up ability, it's kind of compensate for that. Or maybe I'm playing against this other team up here. Maybe if we use this team up here, we can kind of counter that team up. So I think that adds a whole nother layer of strategy that I think is super, super cool. So I'm on like the complete opposite side of the spectrum there. I definitely think like with shooters, there's always, especially hero shooters, there's always heroes that are less desirable than others. So I think you're always going to see characters that are stronger than others. I mean, you see this with League. It's like there's what, like 100 something characters, and there's probably maybe like 20
there's certain comps too.
But there's probably like, if you think about like, there's 100 characters and maybe there's like 20, 30 characters that are played and the other 70 are just not touched. So it's something very similar to that. And you saw that with Overwatch too. It's like there's a lot of characters. There's characters that people play, and then there's characters that people don't play. So you're always going to see that.
See, I don't think it really even said in the game who all you can team up with, did it?
I think if you hit the little team up thing, it'll highlight who you should choose. Like if you select on there, I want to team up with this character, it highlights the character.
Oh, I didn't even see. I just saw a request to team up with it. I do know as of right now there are only 15 team up abilities in the game. But yeah, like I said, I saw the request to do it, but so what would you rate this overall?
It's hard to say, because for me it's not a finished product yet. Again, I think this game is large, at least for me specifically. I think the gameplay is fun. I think if we're just speaking gameplay wise, it's an 8 out of 10 for me. But at the same time, it's like, if the esports can develop into something huge or something exciting and enjoyable, I think this very easily could be a 9-10 for me.
Yeah, I give it a 7.5 right now. I'm kind of same there with you. Like, I'm wanting to see how their ranked play is and their competitive scene before I kind of dump more time into it. Because like you said, we already got how many freaking games that have been released and that we're playing right now.
Yeah, but so far it's a super fun game, and it's very enjoyable, and I definitely am having fun playing it. But yeah, like you said, it's hard to say right now, because you're not really getting to experience the whole game yet.
So this is kind of a random question, but it's on the genre of hero shooter. So this game was kind of like a one-off, I think. Do you think that hero shooters are almost like a dead genre, or that there just haven't been a whole lot of games that have seen success in it, like Marvel Rivals?
I don't think it's a dead genre. I think we talked about this when Concord came out. I just think you really, especially with these types of games, you need to have some sort of identifiable IP. You need to have characters that you can connect with. You need to have characters that you grow attachments to. If you don't have that, then you kind of it ruins the aspect of the hero shooter. Like, you don't have heroes. Like, it's a hero. Like, you want to have that. Like, when you see Spider-Man, like, it's like you automatically already know, like, without even like looking at the game and what the gameplay is, and you're saying lore. Like, okay, well, not just his lore, but you kind of know what his abilities are going to look like. Like, you know how Spider-Man should play and how Spider-Man is going to play. Yeah. And I think for the most part, like, Spider-Man plays the way you expect Spider-Man to play. Like, he can swing around and like around buildings. He can crawl up walls. He can do all this other stuff. And it's super cool to get the ability to play that. So I think for me that's the biggest thing with hero shooters. If you don't have the characters that people can connect with, then you're not going to have a successful hero shooter.
I can agree with that. So do you have anything else you want to hit on with this one?
No, that was it.
So normally I give some upcoming games, but there's not like anything coming out next week, unfortunately, that I can recommend. However, there are a few games on Steam that you guys should check out that are on sale at the moment. You got Red Dead Redemption 2 is 67% off at $19.79. You got Days Gone 75% off at $12.49, and No Man's Sky is 60% off at $23.99. And that's it for today's episode of The BS Show. If you enjoyed the unfiltered conversations, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube at The BS Show GG. Also, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at The BS Show GG for all latest updates and hot takes. Catch us on TikTok as well at The BS Show GG. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back next week with more straight talk.